Hello, there we go. When Steve Mosier asked me to speak on his behalf, I was reminded of a story that Fulton Sheen had told, where he said that there was a very prominent philosopher that was going around the country and giving lectures at various universities. And as he was giving these lectures, one day his chauffeur stopped him and said, "You know, I've heard you give this lecture so many times, I could probably deliver it just as good as you can." And the professor said, "Okay, fine, why don't you?" So that evening, the chauffeur got up and he delivered a brilliant lecture, said everything exactly as the professor had said it. And at one point, at the end of the lecture, a hand goes up in the air. And he says, "Professor, in speaking about ontological being, how do you understand the inner being of the person as expressed in the outward sign of the real individual when we look at it encompassed in modern society?" And the chauffeur looked at him and said, "What a stupid question. It's so stupid, in fact, I'll have my chauffeur answer it." So, I will try to deliver this as Steve Mosier would, and if you have any questions, I will defer to my chauffeur. For over half a century, the population control movement has waged war on human fertility. Originally, it was a fringe movement driven by the fear of population explosion among peoples of color. The movement has, over the years, gained clout, if not respectability. Its ranks now include major international organizations like the International Planned Parenthood Federation and the United Nations Population Fund, not to mention the foreign aid bureaucracies of most of the wealthy countries of the world. Billions of dollars are at its collective disposal. By threatening to withhold funding for basic human health and human needs, these powerful agencies have literally shoved birth control down the throats of poor people in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. Such programs may be sugar-coated as reproductive health, maternal health, or family planning, but their real purpose is to lower the birth rate. This is a bitter pill for many governments to swallow, but what they can do against the powerful of the earth, as Pope John Paul II called them, when they prefer to promote and impose, by whatever means, a massive program of birth control. Even the economic help, which they would be ready to give, is unjustly made conditional on the acceptance of an anti-birth policy. For the neo-Malthusian true believer, population growth is the root of all mankind's problems. In simple terms, a simple inverse relationship replaces all the messy vagaries and complexities of the human existence and economy. More people equals less of everything. Property, prosperity, food supply, economic growth, social order, all are jeopardized by any increase in human numbers. Over the decades, the movement has increasingly used environment as a pretext for its actions. To hear it told by them, all of the earth's real and imagined woes, from too little food and too little fresh water, too much air and water pollution, are a result of the same cause. The planet that we call home is simply too crowded. The solution to all of our collective ills, they say, is to reduce the birth rate. The most recent justification for population control is global warming, the controversial idea that by burning fossil fuels we are heating the earth. The most cost-effective way to cool things down again, according to a report sponsored by the UK's Optimum Population Trust, is to flood the developing world with contraceptives. Reducing the number of babies born will mean fewer emitters of CO2, which in turn will lower emissions. The trust went on to call contraception the latest in green technology, and to insist on the effort to combat global warming, we must have a large population control component. Babies must be seen as burdens, the population control movement is saying, not blessings. The main force standing in the way of the population control juggernaut has been, from the beginning, the Catholic Church. Following in the footsteps of his predecessor, Pope Benedict XVI, made the case for the people in his encyclical Caritas in Veritate, where he wrote that to consider population increase as the primary cause of underdevelopment is mistaken even from an economic point of view. The Pope went on, specifically to criticize, quote, non-governmental organizations that work actively to spread abortion, at times promoting the practice of sterilization in poor countries, in some cases, not even informing the women concerned. I think we heard a little bit about that earlier today. Moreover, there is reason to suspect that development aid is sometimes linked to specific healthcare policies, which de facto involve the imposition of strong birth control measures, end quote. For its constant defense of human life, the Church has been the target of endless criticism by the anti-natalists. They blame Catholicism for causing governments to shy away from the overpopulation problem more seriously. What they refuse to understand is that the Church's stance is not just a matter of traditional morality, but of hard science. Reducing the number of babies born, it turns out, does not in itself solve political, economic, or environmental problems, as millions of well-meaning Americans have been propagandized into believing. On the contrary, it often creates them. Take Social Security and Medicare, for example. For some reason, people do not yet grasp that the social welfare policies of the United States and other industrialized nations depend on Ponzi-style financing. This means that unless each generation of tax-paying workers is larger than the one that went before it, these schemes are difficult to sustain at best. This is exactly the problem that we face now. Birth rates have been in free fall for most of the developing world for some time. Europe, as a whole, is averaging only 1.3 children per couple. Some Asian countries, such as Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan, are in even worse shape demographically. The birth dearth means that the workforce and revenues are shrinking at precisely the same time that the population of elderly is expanding and demanding the retirement and health benefits that they had long been promised. Those who would reduce our numbers are also blind to the fact that people are ingenious producers and problem solvers rather than just consumers. People are not just mouths, they are minds as well. Every stomach comes with two hands attached. In fact, population growth has been the primary driver of progress throughout human history. How this works is not difficult to understand. A growing population will naturally create temporary shortages of certain raw materials, goods, and services. As scarcity drives prices higher, innovators and entrepreneurs will be drawn to exact more raw materials, to produce more goods at lower costs, and to distribute them more efficiently to the public. At the end of the creative process, if it is not stultified by corrupt or communist regimes, you will have more goods available at lower prices, precisely because of population growth. As far as the environment is concerned, our problems are caused by poverty, not by people. It is poverty that leads a destitute people to cut down all trees for fuel, as in parts of Haiti. It is poverty that makes it difficult for them to dispose of their wastes, which often wind up polluting their only source of drinking water. Poverty forces people to degrade their surroundings just to survive. Wealth, on the other hand, brings with it the resources needed to clean up and protect the environment. Wealth is also positively correlated with urbanization, which concentrates people in urban settings and takes them out of the countryside, reducing what the environmentalists are fond of calling the size of the human footprint. Wealth also enables us to unlock more resources, as the desalination of seawater underscores. Economic and population growth is not destroying the earth, despite what the environmentalists and population controllers say. It is making it possible to restore much of it to its pristine state. There's an Italian proverb that says that every new baby comes with a loaf of bread under each arm. As we gradually eliminate poverty through economic growth, environmental indicators will improve, and we are gradually eliminating poverty. As the late Julian Simon so often remarked, children born today will lead longer, healthier lives than ever before. They will eat better, receive more education, and enjoy a higher standard of living. They will have more time for leisure activities and travel, and they will live in a world where vast tracts of land have been set aside and preserved in their natural beauty, and where the ugly scars of industrialization have largely been healed. The world is not an overcrowded ark, but is, as it was designed to be, a beautiful horn of plenty, and people, the pinnacle of creation, are the ultimate resource. Working together for a better life for all of God's creation, the more of the earth's wealth that we can unlock, and the more of its beauty that we can preserve. Now, I do want to add to this that one of the things facing especially Africa with regard to population control programs and the population control agenda, organizations like UNFPA, USAID, the IPPF, if it's a United Nations entity and it is trying to do humanitarian aid, it is attached to the population control agenda. Do not make any mistake about that. It is population control. The United States has USAID. It also has PEPFAR. Those two agencies work very closely with a lot of NGOs, non-governmental organizations, in trying to implement their policies and programs in the third world. Many of those programs are attached to population control programs. And I'm sad to say, Catholic Relief Services is one of those NGOs. It receives a lot of money from USAID and PEPFAR, and in many cases, it is working very closely with entities like CARE International, Save the Children, Futures Group, Population Services International, and those organizations being introduced to your people by Catholic Relief Services are then following up and teaching them about contraception and abortion. Make no mistake, the population control agenda is very real, and it has integrated itself into every facet of life. So I will leave you there, but I do want to assure you that being from the United States, my driveway is not paved with gold.
Thank you for being